We all know the Marvel and DC universes. Familiar heroes abound in each. From Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman to Hulk, Daredevil, and Spider-Man. But did you know that there is a third universe out there? One that's been around for nearly 40 years. And I'm not talking about Image or Dark Horse or any of those creator-owned publishers where characters come in and out of continuity. I'm talking about a centrally owned, continuous universe with a consistent cast of characters who have their own ongoing books and regularly cross over and interact with each other. They even have a major team book that brings their most popular characters together each month. It's called the Valiant Universe, and it was started all the way back in 1989 by ex-Marvel editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. Now, they have had a roller coaster of a history, starting off to notable success and then floundering to the point where they disappeared by the late 90s, early 2000s. And they were absent all the way up until 2012 when a couple of passionate entrepreneurs relaunched the line. While they have once again hit some rough patches in recent years, those comics that they started releasing in 2012 are legitimately some of my all-time favorite books that I have ever read and have introduced me to some of my all-time favorite comic book characters. Their flagship is a guy called X.O. Manowar, and he has lived rent-free in my head ever since I discovered him. He is a 5th century Visigoth who comes into possession of advanced alien armor and through comic book shenanigans ends up in the 21st century. He's a man from the past with armor from the future in the present day. That is such an interesting setup, and I really wish more people were aware of this character. So stick around as I take you guys through X.O. Manowar's full origin as it was told in the comics released in 2012.
The Romans are a treacherous lot, but I did not think them capable of such dishonor. Easter is a day for worship, not fighting. Two soldiers rush to gear up as they reach the battlefield, only to be faced with the sprawling, ordered ranks of Roman soldiers. We're in Pollentia, a region in what we would now call northern Italy. The year is 402 CE. The Visigoths form lines under raining spears that shatter shields in advance of flaming onager-flung projectiles. Soldiers are crushed and flames are flung to shields. The lines immediately begin to falter. King Alaric of the Visigoths calls the retreat. They must reserve their strength for a battle of their own design and choosing. His nephew Aric marches past him in the wrong direction, towards the Romans. Alaric orders him to join the retreat, but Aric says no. He insists they can win. They need to charge and put the Romans on the back foot. Aric's own father says there's no getting through to him. He's too stubborn. Aric leaps forward into battle, rearing for the fight. "Hold your ground, Visigoths!" he shouts to rally his men. "Show the Romans what we are made of." "What we're made of is all over the ground," a soldier retorts. "What are they supposed to do? Stand around like sheep and be torn apart by artillery?" Aric puts a steady hand on his shoulder. "Brother, how long have we wandered the lands of this cursed empire? When our Roman masters have use for us, they send us to die in their wars. When they have no use, they slaughter us themselves. Meanwhile, our children starve, our women are made slaves, or worse." He turns his sword on the enemy. "No more," he shouts. "Today, we defend these fields as if they were our own. We raise our swords and we tell the enemy, no more. For your fathers and mothers, fight. For your sons and daughters, fight. And for a land to call home, fight!" The Visigoths charge with a mighty chorus of battle roars. The armies clash and men fall to blades all around, but too many of the fallen are Visigoth and not enough Roman. Aric's father yells that there are too many of them. "Patience," he replies. "I can only kill one at a time." They're overrun. The Romans have breached the camp. The king calls for his forces to fall back to the wagons. Aric's father falls to a spearman who is decapitated a moment later. Aric throws his father over the back of a horse and gallops away as the Romans cheer their victory. Later, in the Visigoths' camp, Aric tells his father that the Romans have stopped their pursuit. Unfortunately, they also took a great deal of prisoners, including Aric's own mother and wife. The king is bargaining for their return, but word is they've already begun the journey back to Rome. Aric tries to hand his father's sword to him, but he pushes it away weakly. The sword is worthless when their enemies have ballistae and onagers, cities with towering walls against their blades and open fields. "It was never enough." His father's last words rattle out as he succumbs to his wounds. Even as Aric pulls his father's eyes closed, the call to arms goes out. Romans have been spotted to the west, which is odd considering they had stopped pursuing them. Aric charges with his father's sword in hand. He will prove it worthy. These Romans are odd-looking, to say the least. And what is that massive transport they have? The Visigoths whisper to themselves as they take in their foe. There's no telling how many more soldiers might be inside that thing. Auric isn't interested in caution, though. He charges like his name was Leroy, and his men follow diligently, only to be met with strange flames spewing forth from the enemy's weapons. But in the moment, the Visigoths outnumber the strange Romans. Blades meet flesh and they fall to the earth, bleeding green. These soldiers aren't as human as it seemed. Then the transport opens and more soldiers spew forth, including an otherworldly behemoth. Back at the Visigoth camp, more strange Romans creep through the night. They enter a tent to find a small infant sleeping. One of them plucks a single hair from its head, then puts it into some kind of device. They bring out another infant, this one clearly not human, and use the device to inject it. The alien infant shifts and changes until it looks just like the human, for which it is promptly swapped. The Visigoth warriors engage the other aliens, Auric leaping into the fray with vigor. His father's sword shatters against the armor of the metal behemoth. One of its gargantuan arms flings him away. The battle has turned against the Visigoths, and they lie before the alien soldiers, either dead or incapacitated. The other aliens return from their mission with the infant, informing their commander that the plantings were successful. Commander Trill praises them and orders the survivors loaded for transport. Moments later, the ship's engines ignite and the transport departs. They join many others of their kind in the upper atmosphere, and the small fleet departs Earth's gravity well together. They travel into deep space and approach what the narration calls a Vine colony ship. The human prisoners are brought aboard and brought out with wrists bound, made to march in an orderly line. Auric trips and falls, coughing something up as he does. The man behind him, named Gofty, rushes up to help him. A Vine soldier also comes to force him up and chastise him for falling behind. But then Auric comes up with his hands freed, and uses the thorny cord to strangle the soldier. He frees Gofty, and they hurry off into a side corridor, rushing to hide before their absence is noted. They take cover in a room as more aliens approach. Once they've passed, Auric takes a moment to try and process everything that's happening. He was wrong about their enemies. They're not Romans. They are something else, and they are not the ones who took their family. If they want to free their loved ones, they're first going to need to free themselves. Looking over a balcony, they see their captors gathered together in something that resembles a religious ceremony. Robed figures line the walls on either side as a single figure approaches a floating blue orb. "Blessed armor of Shanhara," it says in its own tongue. "We ask that you reward us for our faith. We ask that you open yourselves to us on this day." A Commander Pith has been chosen for this highest of honors, and is stripped as he too approaches the orb. The sphere splits into many pieces, which move on their own to surround Commander Pith, taking the form of bright blue and gold armor. Auric and Gofty wonder at the sight. This Pith must be their king, they think. Auric ponders whether they truly bow to the creature or to the armor. Then Gofty is struck from behind, and Auric finds himself surrounded by alien soldiers. They are bound and returned to the pens with the other slaves before they can see what happens next. But back in the chamber, Commander Pith is exultant. The armor speaks to them. They can feel its magnificent power. Then they choke and scream. They fall to the floor, dead. The armor retracts and their verdant lifeblood pools beneath them as it returns to its pedestal. Once again, the Vine have been scorned by the armor of Shanhara. It rejects even their strongest supplicants. But the sacred armor will only bestow its gifts to the most worthy. Pith did not meet the standards. Until the worthy one is found, they must keep faith. The day will come, so says their priest. Auric simmers in the cell amidst the other slaves. Gofty asks aloud what's happening. "I do not know, Gofty," Auric responds. "But I have seen less ceremony at the launching of a ship of war. These creatures, they possess powerful weapons indeed. Our swords splintered like branches against them. If we are to defeat these enemies, we will need new weapons. We must get back to that room. We must take these creatures' weapons. Then we will escape, and we will crush the Roman Empire, brick by brick." We flash back to a time when Auric was with Deidre, his wife. She chides him as he readies to leave when it is barely even sunrise. Auric says that Roman legions were seen crossing into the area. His uncle, the king, wants to discuss strategy. Deidre tells him to return to her. Auric wakes, still on the Vine ship and stuck in a cell. They've been there for 2 days with no food or water. Their captors clearly want them weak and docile. Then one of the aliens arrives and forces them out of the cell and into line. They're taken to some kind of ecosystem within the colony ship and forced to work in the strange fields. It's hot and the work is hard, but their captors have little room for mercy. The slaves are pushed hard and the work is painful. Their fingers cake with their own blood. One of the men, hungry and rebellious, decides that he might as well eat if they mean to make them farmers. He bites into one of the strange fruits they harvest, and is immediately struck. The alien rebukes him in its language, furious at the man for daring to desecrate the offspring. Arik steps in to defend the man, but is quickly subdued by other guards. The damaged offspring is replanted, and the guards punish Arik, making an example of him. His hand is cut off with a single blow. He's returned to his cell, where he rips a bandage from his own shirt before promptly passing out. Their lives continue on in this exhausting pattern, shift after shift. Many of them worked to death over the years. The others lose hope, but Arik's will persists. Their captors think them savages. He plans to show them just how savage they can be. It is the final day of their suffering, he says. They will prepare to make their move this night. Once the guards leave them alone in their cell, they get to work, pulling out tools and supplies they've managed to hide away. Arik's vanguard will first free those in the other cages, then fight their way to a specific room he points out on a map one of the others created. It should contain their armory. He rouses his men with reminders of what was taken from them, stoking the rage they'll need to succeed. Tomorrow, they live or die as free men. When the Vine captors return in the morning, one of the men lies motionless in the middle of the cell. One of the two guards approaches, announcing the man dead and ordering the body removed and taken to be composted. Then Arik's arm is around the alien's neck and his shiv in its back. A makeshift bow is used to put down his compatriot. Arik takes the guard's polearm and uses it to remove one of its hands, using it as a key to unlock the cells. Their escape attempt is spotted immediately and their captors begin firing. Arik charges and orders the others to unlock the rest of the cages. He kills the guard, but not before they manage to sound an alarm. But the humans are armed now, and Arik is a natural leader. He keeps them together as they make their way through their planned route toward the armory, only to be met with an entire squadron of guards at its door. Arik and his followers charge and the Vine open fire, but the numbers are on the humans' side. Few of them survive, but it's more than the squad of aliens, and so Arik leads his men into the armory. He enters the room with the strange orb, and the others ward away the priest who watches over it. The others lament over the lack of actual arms in the armory, but Arik has seen what this strange sphere can do. He approaches, and it begins to unfurl. More Vine soldiers approach through the trail of carnage they left behind them, but the door is barricaded. Explosives are set on the door to deal with that obstacle. Inside, the armor surrounds Arik like it did Pith before. The priest cries sacrilege, even with a blade against their throat. Arik cries out as blood bursts from his nose. He collapses. The door explodes and the Vine guards burst in, weapons trained. Their commander gives the order for execution. But then their heads explode in a series of green energy bursts before they can even fire. Arik is alive, and the armor has chosen him. Elsewhere on the ship, two Vine guards patrol. One of them expresses how ridiculous it is to raise the general alarm for a single slave. It can't be that serious. Whoever set it off was probably drunk, they say. The Vine could never be outsmarted by slaves so stupid as to run to the ceremony room. They pop their heads over the balcony, ready to get in some easy target practice on the rebellious slaves. Then their heads explode with more bursts of green energy. Arik slaughters the Vine with the powerful armor. All the while, the priest is in hysterics behind him. The sacred armor of Shanhara has killed everyone who has worn it. How could it have chosen a lowly slave from the pens? Arik couldn't care less. He now has a weapon befitting his warrior's heart, and uses it as well as he can, even if he doesn't truly understand it. One of the other surviving humans silences the gibbering priest. Arik says he heard the priest say something about his being chosen? Apparently the armor is providing him with translation services, and more, as if the armor has thoughts to share with him. Suddenly Arik writhes in pain and screams as the armor seems to attack his amputated arm. Then new growth spurts from the stump, and his hand is suddenly back. He's spent years on their ship without it, and the armor brings it back in a moment. He's beginning to understand why the creatures seem to worship it. He arms the other survivors with weapons from the fallen guards, the spoils of Arik's victory. They burst out into the colony ship at large, intending on fighting to the bay where the smaller transport ships are stored. They are going home. They're met with a massive force of Vine soldiers, and the battle gets bloody fast. Arik's friend Gofty is hit, and he pulls him to the side. He was shot in the gut. It's a mortal wound. Gofty tells Auric to fight on without him, to finish what they started and get home so he can look after both their families. Then the Vine throws some kind of grenade and it blows, sending Auric flying and wiping out the rest of his mutinous men. Auric flies into a rage at the loss. Literally. Weapons he doesn't understand fly from the miraculous suit of armor. A projectile explodes amidst the enemy, sending Vine soldiers flying in many pieces. Auric slaughters his captors indiscriminately. But then he is challenged once again by the metal behemoth, piloted by Commander Trill, the very creature who captured him so many years before. Auric charges, spewing his anger and hatred out. "You took me from my home, my people, my wife!" He leaps and a sword of pure energy forms in his hands. The glowing blade shatters the mech suit's cockpit in a single blow. Auric tears into the suit, ripping away the thin barrier that protects his quarry. Then the alien sticks 2 grenades to his chest and Auric falls away. The explosion rocks the ship, tearing open a rift in the hull. Auric floats amidst the debris in open space. The armor has kept him intact, but the visor is cracked. It is not as impervious to damage as it seemed. Trill orders the ship's cannons fired directly at Auric. He wants the Manowar armor destroyed. Deidre appears to Auric in his dreams. She demands he return to her. The armor repairs itself. Deidre demands his return. Auric wakes, his rage at the Romans who stole her, dragging him back into consciousness. The ship prepares to fire its weapons even as their priest begs them to stop. The order to fire is repeated. Auric vanishes. The Vine are left stumbling and confused. Their sacred armor has disappeared in the possession of a primitive slave. Our view returns to Earth, specifically the Pratica de Mare Air Force Base just 30 kilometers south of Rome. It's modern day, circa 2012 CE. Radar detects an unidentified inbound object from above, moving faster than Mach 10. The alarm is sounded. Whatever it is can't be good. The object crashes into the Colosseum, shattering parts of the iconic structure. Out of the crater stands a figure in odd blue and gold armor. Auric has returned to Earth. "I have returned to you, my wife," he says, lifting his face to the familiar air. That's when he notices the people nearby. The very strange people. This isn't the same Rome he had left. Soldiers emerge and train guns on Auric, ordering him to surrender. As far as he's concerned, they're just more Roman pigs ready for the slaughter. He's been looking to unleash his newfound power on as many of them as possible. Back in deep space, the Vine are surveying the damage to their colony ship. It is far more extensive than anticipated. The explosion seems to have set off some kind of chain reaction. Their admiral orders the repair efforts to be redoubled. The priest begs to know what they plan in regards to their sacred armor. Admiral Xylem rebukes the priest. His incompetence allowed the Manowar armor to be stolen by a slave. Then he turns his ire on Commander Trill, whose explosives not only stranded the ship, but provided the slave with an escape route. Trill tries to explain. His suit was no match for the mighty Manowar armor. It single-handedly destroyed an entire battalion with a single strike. Trill turns it back on the Admiral. If the cannons had been fired as he ordered, they wouldn't need to consider pursuing it as they do now. The Admiral cautions him on speaking so brazenly to his superior. They may be returning to Earth, and Trill may get the chance to destroy the armor that he so desperately wants. The priest objects. The armor of Shanhara is their most sacred relic. It has finally chosen a host and revealed its power as they have been waiting for. To destroy the armor now would be the gravest of mistakes. They must try to understand why it chose the animal over one of their own. To solve this mystery, the Admiral cuts off the argument. He will consult with the council to determine their next move. His instinct agrees with the priest. The armor should be recovered. This development understood. But make no mistake, he says. If the armor cannot be reclaimed, he will advise the council to destroy it. Back in Rome, Auric squares off with the modern Roman soldiers, standing tall in the Manowar armor. He replaces his helmet. He did not come this far just to surrender. The soldiers open fire. Their bullets are ineffective. Auric returns fire and his weapons are far more successful. He flies forward and grabs one of the men, bearing him up into the air. He throws the man aside to crunch violently into the Colosseum, then flies higher to survey the city of his greatest enemies. It has grown in his time away, changed and warped, but it will not be enough to resist him. A missile flies in and strikes him squarely in the back. A fighter pilot confirms the direct hit. Then the Manowar armor flies out from the inferno and speeds at the jet, tearing through it like paper. Rome's new weapons are still no match for the armor. Another jet approaches. Auric rips its pilot from the cockpit. He demands to know where the general and the emperor are, where his wife is. The pilot cries out, "Italy doesn't have an emperor." In his shock, Auric drops the man. The suit shows him visions of the time he missed. 16 centuries have passed while Auric was on the Vine ship, the result of time dilation due to their relativistic speeds. He snaps out of his reverie and catches the man he dropped, bringing him safely to the ground for questioning. He demands to know what happened to the Romans, to his people. The response is bittersweet. Rome is no empire, merely a single city. But his people, the Visigoths, they too are gone. Auric flies away to process, the military losing track of him immediately. His last recorded bearing was headed northward. Halfway across the world, a man is awoken in his Manhattan apartment. A voice on the phone tells him to turn on the news. Auric and the armor are plastered across the media. He's being called a terrorist. The man kicks out the entourage of beautiful women from his apartment. He's got work to do. He closes his eyes and enters an ethereal space where he meets with other mysterious figures. They call him Alexander and say that they've been waiting for him. He asks if it's true. Has the sacred armor chosen a host? It would seem so, one of them replies. They know about the slave revolt and that a human wears the armor. They vow to correct the sacrilegious affront. These must be the insurgents that were planted so many years before. Or maybe their descendants. The Vine Admiral himself appears in the meeting. His invasion is imminent. The armor must be retrieved. The council has ordered that the plants use their influence in human society to reclaim the armor prior to the Admiral's arrival. Humanity will soon be asking too many questions about the armor's origins. Alexander volunteers to lead the effort, and the others pledge their support in their own ways. Back in the physical realm, Alexander orders his jet prepared, and our first arc ends.
Maybe now you see why I find Exo Manowar so interesting. He's an ancient warrior, stolen from his home and thrust into a world he could never understand. But his spirit is unbreakable, his will ironclad, and he fights through this insane world, taking from it its most powerful weapon. Also, he can get home and rescue his wife and people. Except his home is gone. He returns to Earth over 1,500 years after he left because time dilation is a bitch. So what does he do now? Everything he was focused on this one goal that is now no longer achievable. He cannot go back. Everything he ever knew is gone. The world is changed and different. And the setup is so interesting. There are so many good questions left unanswered that we get to explore in the future issues. For instance, where did this armor come from? If the Vine made it, why does it never let any of them wear it? There are a whopping 13 volumes, about 52 issues in this run that answer those questions and so many more. And let me tell you, some of the answers are crazy. I cannot recommend this book enough. There's also actually a brand new ongoing happening right now for their Valiant Beyond initiative, which is very similar to the Marvel Ultimate Universe and the DC Absolute Universe, where they take their characters, put them in a new setting and new context to tell new stories with them. This just started a month or two back, so now is the perfect time to get into it. The second issue of Valiant Beyond Exo Manowar comes out at the end of the month, around October 29th, if I remember correctly. So check it out. If you made it here to the end, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I will be bringing you guys more breakdowns of underrated and undervalued comic book stories as we continue on.